Most people believe that life is a straight line. You're born, you grow up, you live, and eventually, you die, end of story. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if death isn't a final stop, but just one more step in a much bigger, stranger journey? There's a concept that flips everything we think we know. It says life isn't a one-time event. It's a cycle that repeats over and over for 1,000 years or more. Not just metaphorically, but as an actual process of rebirth, death, and evolution across different states of being. This cycle is precise and structured. Every decision, every feeling, even your desires, are part of what builds your next life. Think of it this way. Have you ever met someone and felt like you've known them forever? Or had an unexplainable fear or talent since childhood? Those are echoes of past lives, not random quirks, but signs that you've lived before. When you die, you don't just vanish. You go through a kind of review process where you experience your life again, not from your point of view, but from the perspective of everyone you affected. Then you move on, through stages that clear out emotional baggage and prepare you for what's next. It sounds wild, but parts of this idea echo across many traditions, from ancient Eastern beliefs to modern accounts of near-death experiences. Your next life isn't random. It's shaped by what you've done before, not in a judgmental or punishing way, but as cause and effect. If you were generous and wise, your next life may be easier, more focused on helping others. If you were selfish or destructive, your next experience may challenge you to grow in exactly the areas you avoided. It's not about morality. It's about learning. This idea suggests that the soul gradually evolves, life after life, aiming to eventually break free of the cycle altogether. The big question is, do you keep forgetting and repeating the same mistakes, or do you wake up and start shaping your destiny with intention? You don't have to believe in reincarnation to take something powerful from this. The idea that your actions matter, that you're part of something larger, and that your thoughts and choices echo far beyond the moment. Maybe that's the real lesson, that how you live today shapes what happens next. Most people reach adulthood focused entirely on the physical world. Careers, money, relationships, status. It's what we're taught matters. But around the age of 49, something often shifts. The energy that once pushed people to chase material success begins to fade, and for many, a quiet question surfaces. Is this really all there is? This stage, often dismissed as a midlife crisis, might actually be something deeper, the start of awakening. 49 is a turning point. It's when the soul, if it's ready, starts to pull away from physical cravings and turns inward. In ancient traditions, this was seen as the prime moment to gain higher understanding, when you're old enough to have lived, made mistakes, and learned from them, but still mentally sharp enough to change direction. The desires we chase early in life, money, fame, validation, are part of a system meant to trap us. Not in a conspiratorial way, but in the sense that the physical world is designed to keep us focused on it. That's why breaking free isn't easy. It takes awareness, discipline, and often hardship. People who begin to question the system, who ask why they're unhappy despite having everything, are usually the ones starting to wake up. But here's where it gets more real. If you don't begin this shift, you remain stuck in the cycle. When you die, you're not punished, but you are pulled back into another round, often with similar struggles, challenges, and blind spots, until you begin to learn the deeper lessons. This changes how we can think about suffering. Struggles aren't punishments. They're opportunities for growth that you may have even set up for yourself before being born. Think about that. What if your hardest experiences, loss, failure, heartbreak, aren't just random pain, but part of your own personal curriculum? It reframes everything. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? The better question might be, what is this trying to teach me? Life isn't just something happening to you. It's something happening for you, based on what your soul still needs to learn. And maybe that's the real purpose behind the cycle. Not punishment, not reward, just learning. Until eventually you've learned enough to stop needing the cycle at all. Let's say you die. There's no tunnel of light right away, no immediate peace. Instead, you're suddenly outside your body, aware, but lighter. You're not in pain. You're just not in your body anymore. Then comes something unexpected. You experience your entire life all over again, but not through your own eyes. You feel it from everyone else's perspective. Every joy you gave someone, every lie you told, every moment you hurt or helped another person, it's all there, and you feel it as if you were them. This isn't some punishment. It's just clarity. That part alone is worth thinking about. What if the way you treat people, even in the smallest moments, is what really matters in the end? What if that's the one thing that actually follows you? But here's where it gets more complicated. Not everyone moves on peacefully. Some people cling to their identity, their regrets, their pain, or their need for control. And the more they cling, the harder it is to let go. These souls often get stuck in a kind of in-between, not alive, not fully gone. That's where ideas of ghosts or hauntings might come from. They're not malicious. They're just stuck. Why? Because they can't accept that life, and their identity in it, is over. The more someone was attached to their image, their status, or unfinished business, the harder it is to transition. The suffering after death doesn't come from what's out there. It comes from what you haven't dealt with in here. Your unresolved emotions, regrets, or resistance to letting go. Think of it like trying to move out of a house while still clinging to everything inside. The more you hold on, the harder it is to walk through the door. But there's more. After this stage, the soul enters a place of purification, a kind of spiritual detox. It's not fire and brimstone. It's more like emotional processing at a deep level. Everything that wasn't resolved in life, the bitterness, guilt, fear, needs to be released. And this is where a lot of people get stuck for what feels like a long time, because they never dealt with it while alive. This stage forces you to be honest with yourself. The more truthfully you live now, the more you face your flaws, repair your damage, and grow emotionally, the easier your transition later. That means spiritual work isn't about beliefs or rituals. It's about self-awareness, being honest about who you are, how you treat others, and what really motivates you. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. So the takeaway? Life isn't just about what you build. It's about what you carry. And when it's time to let go of the physical, only what's real, your character, your awareness, your choices continues on. Once the soul has let go of the emotional baggage, something surprising happens. It enters a space where thought itself becomes powerful, not like thinking on earth, but more like instantly creating reality just by focusing your mind. This is the second heaven. Your thoughts aren't just ideas anymore. They are the building blocks of what comes next. In this space, the soul doesn't have a body. It doesn't crave food or approval. It doesn't worry about status or survival. All of that is gone. What remains is the pure mind, the real you, stripped of distractions. Your next life doesn't just happen randomly. You don't spin a cosmic wheel and get assigned a new identity. Instead, your experiences, intentions, and actions from previous lives lay the foundation for your next one. The way you thought and acted before becomes the blueprint. Let's break that down with a simple example. Say someone spent their last life dedicated to helping others, not for recognition, but out of genuine compassion. In this realm, that intention creates energy. That energy influences the kind of body, environment, and opportunities they'll be drawn to next. Maybe they come back as a teacher, a caregiver, or even a quiet person with a strong inner purpose. Now, say someone lived entirely for themselves, hurting others without ever trying to understand or change. That energy doesn't go away. It carries over. Their next life might be filled with situations that force them to feel the kind of pain they once caused, not as punishment, but to give them the opportunity to grow. This is where the concept of karma is often misunderstood. It's not about revenge or justice. It's about balance. What you put out comes back, not because someone's keeping score, but because energy naturally flows that way. In this realm, some souls can actually help design their next life, like setting up the conditions they'll need to evolve. That's why you sometimes hear about kids who are born with extraordinary talents, wisdom beyond their years, or a clear sense of purpose. They didn't just get lucky. They might have chosen their path with awareness. It also explains why some people feel drawn to certain cultures, languages, or time periods for no logical reason. These aren't just interests. They could be leftovers from previous lifetimes. The reason we don't remember all of this when we're born is because we can't. Carrying every memory from every life would overwhelm the human mind. So the memories are filtered. The pain is softened. But the wisdom? That stays. It shows up as intuition, personality traits, fears, talents, or even the way you see the world. So what does this mean for you now? It means your thoughts, especially the ones you repeat, really do matter. They're not just passing clouds. They're patterns that shape who you become, both in this life and possibly the next. The takeaway is simple but deep. How you think today could influence the life you live tomorrow. And if that's true, then working on your mindset, not just your resume or image, might be one of the most important things you can do. After passing through the realm where thoughts shape reality, the soul enters its final stop before returning to Earth. This is called the third heaven, and it's different from anything we've talked about so far. Here, there are no thoughts, no emotions, no memories, just awareness. It's not like a peaceful daydream. It's more like being fully awake for the first time. There's no need to think because everything is instantly understood. There's no struggle, no questioning. It's not silence, it's clarity. This stage is what some traditions describe as true rest. Not sleep, not vacation, but real, full detachment from everything the soul has been through. The pain, the roles, even the idea of being someone. It's where the soul remembers what it truly is. Not a personality, not a history, but a timeless form of consciousness. This stage is necessary, not for reward, but for reset. Without it, the soul would carry too much noise into the next life. It would be like trying to write on a chalkboard already covered in scribbles. This stage wipes the slate clean, but not completely. The soul retains what's essential, the wisdom, the core identity, and the deep lessons. The ego, the name, the personal story, those fade. Something else happens here that most people don't think about. The soul sees the entire structure of its journey. It understands, without emotion, why certain things happened, why certain people came into its life, why it suffered, why it succeeded. In this space, the soul finally sees the pattern, and with that understanding, it begins to prepare. You don't come back randomly. You're drawn into your next life by your own energy. The kind of person you were, the mindset you had, the way you lived, all of that becomes the pull that shapes the next incarnation. It's not about being good or bad. It's about balance, growth, and continuation. This helps explain some real-life experiences. Why some people feel deeply connected to a different gender or identity. It may reflect past life experiences aiming for balance. Why others are born into hardship despite being kind people. They may be working through old patterns they once created. Why some individuals seem to wake up to a deeper truth at a young age. They may have rested longer in the third heaven, absorbing more awareness before returning. Souls don't stay in the third heaven forever. Even if it's a place of peace, growth happens through experience. Eventually, each soul returns, not out of punishment, but because there is still more to learn, more to do, more to become. And just before rebirth, the soul makes a final choice, or rather, a surrender to the next phase of life. It steps back into the illusion of separation, of identity, of time. It forgets, not by accident, but by design. Because in order to truly grow, the soul needs to face life fresh. The pain, the love, the struggle, it all has to feel real to matter. And so the cycle begins again. But this time, if the soul has learned enough, it returns differently. Less reactive, more aware, more intentional. Peace doesn't come from escaping life. It comes from understanding it. The more you see the patterns, the less you're trapped by them. The more conscious you are, the less you carry unnecessary weight into the next round. The cycle doesn't restart with a blank slate. It restarts with purpose. When the soul returns to Earth, it's not just dropped into a random situation. The life you're born into, your body, your parents, your environment, isn't accidental. It's aligned with the lessons your soul still needs to learn. You won't remember that at first, and that's the point. At birth, the soul passes through a kind of forgetting. It's not being erased, it's being protected. Imagine trying to live a new life while remembering every heartbreak, betrayal, and failure from dozens of past lives. It would be too much. So only what matters most stays in subtle ways. That's why early childhood is so important. In the first 7 years, you're not just developing a personality, you're absorbing the emotional tone of your environment. Love, fear, chaos, stability. These early impressions don't just affect your behavior, they reactivate the deep patterns your soul brought in. For example, a child afraid of water with no explanation might have drowned in a past life. A child who's unusually wise, artistic, or drawn to healing may have been developing those abilities over many lifetimes. A child who feels instantly close to a certain person, or hostile without knowing why, could be reconnecting with a soul they've met before. Most of these things aren't visible on the surface, but they quietly shape the path ahead. You're not just reacting to this life. You're continuing a much older story. So what can you actually do with all this? That's where the final insight comes in. You have more control than you think, not over what happens, but over how you respond, how you grow, and whether you stay awake or fall back into the illusion. The point of all this, the 1,000-year cycle, the life review, the heavens, the forgetting, isn't to trap you. It's to give you chances, again and again, until you finally remember who you are and start making conscious choices that change the pattern. This isn't just spiritual philosophy. It's practical. If you hold on to pain and blame, you carry that into the next round. If you learn, forgive, and grow, especially in hard times, you evolve. If you wake up to the bigger picture, Your next life doesn't just happen. You help shape it. The cycle ends when the soul no longer needs it, when it has learned enough, let go enough, and remembered enough to stop chasing, stop fearing, and start simply being. That's the path to liberation. And it doesn't begin after death. It begins now, with awareness, with curiosity, with choosing to live your life like it actually matters. Because if this idea is even partially true, then nothing you do is ever lost. Every moment is part of something much bigger.